The Roman Empire, which was very powerful, collapsed. A new system emerged from its ruins. This new system was feudalism. It started in Europe during the Middle Ages. This period lasted from the 5th to the 15th century. Feudalism wasn't just a system, it was a way of life. It determined how people interacted with each other, it shaped the economy, and it influenced politics. Feudalism came about because it was necessary. When Rome fell, there was a lack of leadership and organization. People needed protection. They needed a way to organize themselves. Feudalism provided a solution. It was a hierarchical system. This means people were ranked according to their importance. At the top was the king, the owner of all the land. Below him were nobles, then knights, and lastly peasants. This hierarchy was the foundation of feudalism. It was based on land ownership, loyalty, and responsibilities to each other. The king gave land to nobles in exchange for military service. Nobles, in turn, gave land to knights for the same reason. Peasants worked the land. They gave food and services to their lords in exchange for protection. This system of helping each other held society together. The world of feudalism was complicated. It was a world of knights and castles, of lords and peasants. It was a world of hardship and violence, but also of loyalty and honor. To really understand it, we need to look closer at its structure and explore the lives of the people who lived in it. Imagine a pyramid. At the very top is the king. He is the most powerful person in the kingdom. He owns all the land. The king gives some of his land to nobles. These nobles are below him in the pyramid. In return for the land, the nobles promise to support the king. They pledge their loyalty. They also promise to give him soldiers during wars. Below the nobles are the knights. Knights are warriors. They are skilled fighters. They are loyal to their noble. The noble gives them land in exchange for their military service. Knights are expected to be brave and honorable. They follow a code of chivalry. At the bottom of the pyramid are the peasants. Peasants are farmers. They are the largest group in feudal society. They work the land owned by the nobles and knights. Peasants are tied to the land. They cannot leave without permission. In exchange for their labor, they receive protection from their lord. This pyramid structure was rigid. It was difficult to move up or down. Everyone had a place and a role to play. The king was at the top, but he relied on the loyalty and service of those below him. This system of interdependence was what held feudal society together. Feudalism was built on a system of personal relationships. This system was called vassalage. Vassalage was a relationship between a lord and a vassal. The lord was usually a nobleman. He could also be a king. The vassal was a person who promised loyalty to the lord. This vassal was often a knight. The lord granted the vassal a fief. A fief was a piece of land. It could be anything from a small village to a large estate. The vassal promised to serve the lord in exchange for the fief. This service included military support. The vassal also had to give the lord advice. He had to attend his court, and he had to pay taxes. This exchange of land for service was the foundation of feudalism. It created a network of obligations. These obligations connected people. They provided stability in a time of chaos. Vassalage was not just a contract. It was a sacred bond. It was based on loyalty, honor, and mutual obligation. It was the glue that held feudal society together. Feudalism wasn't just a political system, it was also an economic system. This economic system was called Manorialism. Manorialism was how life was organized on a manor. A manor was a large estate. It was owned by a lord. The manor was self-sufficient. This means it produced everything it needed to survive. Peasants lived on the manor. They worked the land. They grew crops and raised animals. There were also skilled workers on the manor. These included blacksmiths, carpenters, and millers. Peasants were not free, they were tied to the land. This means they could not leave without the lord's permission. They had to give a portion of their crops to the lord. They also had to work on the lord's land for a certain number of days each year. Manorialism provided a stable food supply. It also allowed for some economic security. However, it also limited the freedom of the peasants. They were bound to the land. They were subject to the will of their lord. Life in the feudal world was harsh. It was often short. The quality of life depended on your place in the social order. Kings and nobles lived in luxury. They resided in castles. They feasted on rich foods. They wore fine clothes. They enjoyed hunting and tournaments. Knights, sworn to protect the realm, trained for battle. They participated in tournaments to hone their skills. They lived by a strict code of chivalry. This code emphasized honor, courage, and loyalty. Knights were expected to be brave warriors. They were also expected to be courteous gentlemen. Peasants, the backbone of the feudal economy, led a life of toil. They worked long hours in the fields, they lived in simple homes. They had little opportunity for advancement. Life for peasants was a constant struggle for survival. They were at the mercy of the elements. They were also vulnerable to disease and famine. Despite the hardships, there was a sense of community in feudal society. People were bound together by their shared faith and their dependence on one another. Section 6. The Advantages of Feudalism. Feudalism, despite its rigid structure, provided some benefits. It arose from chaos. It established a system of order. It provided stability during a time of great upheaval. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Europe was fragmented. Feudalism helped to unify these fragmented regions. The system of vassalage, based on loyalty and obligation, created a network of relationships. This network connected the different levels of society. This provided a sense of unity. It also fostered a degree of cooperation. Feudalism also offered protection. The decentralized nature of the system meant that local lords were responsible for the defense of their own lands and people. This made it difficult for invaders to conquer large areas. The lords and their knights provided protection from bandits, raiders, and other threats. This security was essential for the survival of the peasantry. They could focus on farming, knowing they had some level of protection. Section 7. The Disadvantages of Feudalism. Feudalism, while providing stability and protection, suffered from inherent flaws. It was a rigid system. Social mobility was practically non-existent. Peasants were trapped in a cycle of poverty. They had little hope of improving their lot in life. They were bound to the land. They were at the mercy of their lord. The feudal system hindered economic progress. It discouraged innovation and trade. The focus on agriculture limited the development of other industries. The self-sufficient nature of manors meant there was little incentive for trade. This stifled economic growth. The constant warfare and power struggles between feudal lords led to instability. The system designed to provide order often resulted in conflict. These conflicts disrupted the lives of ordinary people. They also drained resources that could have been used for more productive purposes. Section 8. The Decline of a System. By the late Middle Ages, feudalism began its decline. A number of factors contributed to its demise. The rise of centralized monarchies like those in France and England weakened the power of feudal lords. Kings began to assert their authority over their kingdoms. They created standing armies. They reduced their reliance on feudal levies. The Black Death, a devastating plague that swept through Europe in the 14th century, had a profound impact on feudalism. It decimated the population. This led to a shortage of labor. This gave peasants more bargaining power. They could demand better wages and working conditions. The growth of towns and cities also played a role in the decline of feudalism. Towns offered new opportunities for economic and social advancement. People flocked to urban centers. This led to a decline in the rural workforce. It also weakened the economic basis of the feudal system. New ideas, like those of the Renaissance, challenged the old order. The Renaissance marked a period of intellectual and cultural rebirth. It emphasized individualism and human potential. These ideas were at odds with the rigid hierarchy of feudalism. Section 9. The Legacy of Feudalism. Feudalism, though a system of the past, left a lasting impact on Western civilization. Its influence can be seen in our laws, our customs, and even our language. The concept of land ownership, for example, has its roots in feudalism. The relationship between a landlord and a tenant is a distant echo of the relationship between a lord and his vassal. Feudalism also shaped our ideas about government and society. The concept of a social contract, where the governed consent to be ruled in exchange for protection and order, can be traced back to feudalism. The legacy of feudalism is complex. It was a system that both oppressed and protected. It stifled progress but also provided stability. It was a system that ultimately could not withstand the forces of change, yet its influence continues to shape the world we live in today.